Hello. Today we're going to talk about quotation marks when we're using direct speech. And one of the ways that I like to think of it as is as a sandwich. So here's a little sandwich. This is the grammar sandwich. And my quotation marks are like the bread in the sandwich. They always have to go on the outside of the sandwich. If you don't have the bread, then you're going to get really messy because all of these parts of the sandwich are going to get all over your hands: the lettuce, the onion, the cheese, the tomato, the avocado, and the cheese, right? So the quotation marks are the bread that's on the outside, and they keep your hands dry from the sandwich. They always are going, they're encircling the rest of the sandwich. And so that's kind of how I picture quotation marks. I'm going to write my name at the top of page 31. So a quotation is made of the exact words that someone has said. So it's really important for you to know that they are the exact words. We're going to use quotation marks before and after the quotation, and that's why we think of them as bread, right? We're always going to capitalize the first word of a quotation, and we're going to use correct end punctuation. When the quotation begins a sentence, use a comma at the end of the statement, unless it's a question or an exclamation. And we'll see that in a minute when we're practicing. If the speaker's name begins a sentence, use a comma after said. I'm going to underline that because we're probably going to run into that. What words tell if someone is speaking? What are some of the exact words that a person says? Sometimes we see the word said, right? A lot of times the word said gets used. Or words that are similar, synonyms to said. So here's an example of a quotation. I wish we lived near a library, said Aaron. We have a comma here. But we have the quotation marks on the outside, right? The comma is part of the sandwich, and so it has to stay inside the bread or inside the quotation marks. This is starting the beginning of the sentence, like they mentioned before. If the speaker's name begins a sentence, use a comma after said. Christos said, quotation mark, I'd take home books every day if we did. Here's our period, and here's our other quotation mark. So the part that is the actual direct speech is in gray. So we're going to practice doing a few. And if you're lucky, you can hear the ice cream man. He likes to come by the exact same time every day. And he's driving down the alley, so it's very noisy. All right, we're going to write each sentence correctly, capitalize words that should be capitalized, add quotation marks, commas, and end marks where they're needed. So they're only giving us 4 because these are really challenging to do. So we're going to look, and what I like to do is I like to find all the mistakes and fix them right here before I rewrite them. So the bookmobile is coming today, said Katie. This seems like her direct speech. The said Katie is at the end, so remember they told us we're going to put a comma in there, and then we have to put a period after Katie. So I like to work on the sentence, just writing the punctuation on the sentence. And that seems like a really good strategy before I write it so I don't make any mistakes. Now I'm going to write it on the line. Quotation marks, the bookmobile is coming today. Comma, quotation marks, said Katie. Period. I always hate when they give you little short lines because my writing's really big. All right, here we go with number 2. Sam said, I've never seen a bookmobile. If Sam's saying it at the beginning, we're going to put a comma, then the quotes, then we're going to put a period after bookmobile, and then again, just like the bread on our sandwich, the quotes have to go on the outside, right? So they're going to be on the outside. So after the period and bookmobile, now I'm going to write it neatly on the line. I'm going to start out here so I have enough room. Sam said, comma, quotes, I've never seen a bookmobile. Period, quotes. All right. So far, so good. So we've seen both of similar to the examples so far, haven't we? Number 3, it's a big bus that takes library books to people, said Katie. So we're going to put quotes right here. This has to be capitalized. It has to be capitalized. That takes books to people, comma, quotes, period, after Katie. Right? See if I can zoom in a little bit, teensy bit. So now that I've corrected it on the text, I'm going to go ahead and write it. And I'm going to start way out here because I know I'm not going to have room. It's a big bus that takes library books to people. Comma, quotes, said Katie, period. Again, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but when you say what you're doing aloud, it helps you to get it correct, right? When you're actually speaking, you're talking yourself through it. Sam said, let's visit the bookmobile this afternoon. So we're going to need a comma after said. We're going to need quotes right here, and let's is going to need to be capitalized. We didn't have to worry about that up here because it was an I. Let's visit the bookmobile this afternoon. Looks like I can put a period and a quote at the end. So now I'm going to write it out, and woohoo, they gave us 2 lines. Sam said, comma, quotes, let's visit the bookmobile this afternoon. Period, quotes. Okay? So it's really important when you have direct speech that you remember that the quotes are like pieces of bread. They have to go on the outside. All of the punctuation has to go within the quotes, just like all of the parts of the sandwich have to go inside, right, of our grammar sandwich. Sandwich. So remember that your quotes always need to go on the outside. Remember that if the sentence begins with said, it has a comma. If it ends with said, it has a period. Just like in this example, said Katie. All right. These were kind of tricky. And they're gonna review this with you a couple of times because it is fairly difficult to get all of the punctuation and all of the bits and pieces where they need to go. So this was kind of your first taste of quotation marks. More to come. All right. I hope this helped you. Talk to you later.